Alright folks, how are we doing? It's Shabash, it's the Ornaverse, and welcome to my official Ultimate Towers of Olympia guide. We are going to be covering everything you need to know about the basics of towers, from how to find them out in the world in Orna, how to acquire more Olympia tower keys for entry, different types of towers, their final Titan super bosses, the mechanics behind wild tower spawning, specifically for Orna, how the total floors are going to grow over time, to allow you to acquire more tower shards, which is the main currency that you're going to want to be finding to unlock everything in the Titan Workshop. We'll cover the Titan Workshop as well at the end and explain exactly how you're going to spend all of your tower shards, essentially, to upgrade your own towers, craft and augment celestial weapons, and of course unlock the new celestial classes. Now, Towers of Olympia content is pretty much the same for both Orna and Hero of Aethric, so this guide is going to cover both games, and if there are any specific instances where there are differences between both games, I will explicitly state those in the appropriate sections. Essentially, that's mainly only down to the tower's location out in the world. In Orna, you got to move, travel, do a bit of GPS, whereas in the world of Aethric, it's a static game world and towers are dotted around. So we're going to cover all of that, so grab a cup of Orna infused tea and let's light a fire onto this and get started. Okay, so to start the Towers of Olympia, you basically have to be tier 9, that is level 200 in both games. And then there's going to be a new NPC available to you called Pelops. Now, if you do not see Pelops, you will probably have to complete any side quests that you are currently active on. So complete a side quest if he doesn't show up, and then he should show up for you. So in Orna, Pelops will just show up next to you, just like all other quest NPCs. However, in Hero of Aethric, Pelops will be in New Lioness, which is the tier 8 city zone. I don't know why he's in Lioness rather than the tier 9 Baylor zone, but there you go. So waygate over to Old Lioness and then walk down to New Lioness, and you'll be up in the north of the town most likely. So yeah, you should be able to see what he looks like. Basically looks like a big grey castle bodyguard, as you would expect. So to start the quest, Pelops will give you a Tower of Olympia key, and that's you basically started Towers of Olympia content. You don't need to complete the quest, which is, I think, ascend 2 floors of the tower. You don't need to do that to access anything. It just gives you some reward. So once you start the quest, you get the tower key, and then you can access towers. And that will also start spawning the tier 9 Tower Guardian monster, which is a world-only mob. Does also exist in towers themselves, but that is essentially the only thing that drops more tower keys in the game. But we'll talk more about that Tower Guardian mob later on. Okay, moving on to finding towers in the world, wild towers. So in Orna, towers are essentially randomly spawned around the world, and their density should hopefully be never more than a few kilometers away from the nearest tower. The devs have been actively adjusting tower density since they launched Towers of Olympia, but the best way to really find new towers is probably to use the Scout Hawk function, which is in your keep, fortress, castle, whatever. Then you go in the lookout and send out your Scout Hawk. Will scout the land, and the Scout Hawk has a 1 hour cooldown, so you can actually go back in after an hour, because it doesn't seem to get all points of interest nearby. So you do actually find new towers after one journey of the Scout Hawk, if you like. And then what you want to do, make sure you put the compass map layer on, and that will, whatever the Scout Hawk finds will show up there. There's been a couple of rumors around, but I can allay those concerns that towers place existing buildings such as dungeons out in the world. Towers are new buildings; they do not replace any old buildings, or adjust their spawns or anything. Sorry, toast is going in my jumper here. Apologies everyone for some of the audio quality issues I have in this video. What I'm trying to say here is that you cannot use towers while you are in a way vessel. You have to connect with them, interact with them while in real life out in the world. In Orna, towers also shuffle location every week at the same time that dungeons shuffle. So that's basically midnight Sunday, Monday at UTC time. So you should be used to dungeons shuffling around. And here we go. We've got some information on our compass marker. So I just like to kind of remove the usual stuff like Arcanist buildings and bosses and NPCs. And you can see the good stuff there. We've got Tower of Selene, 900 meters away. You can, of course, see the tower in the background there. But you've got also other towers. Tower of Themis, 8 kilometers away. Another one, 5.8 kilometers. Another one, 5.6 kilometers. What's strange at the moment, I found all of the towers that my Scout Hawk is finding are south of me. So it's as if there's nothing north of me. But I don't think that's really... Surely that's not true. There's got to be towers, you know, out there in the north and, you know, northeast, northwest. So I think there may be hopefully some kind of improvements to the Scout Hawk functionality coming. I would recommend, if the devs have time, to look into that, because you may find similar things. But there you can see I've got a tower. In Hero of Aethric, there are currently 5 towers out in the world, and they are in static locations. So I don't know if they will add more towers later on. I'm not too sure. We essentially have 2 towers available in Lioness, one up in the north and another in the west. The next one is on Dragon's Foot, which you access via Valhalla's Cradle Waygate and walk around to the east. And the next one is in Eastern Meropis. You got to go through Meropis, and it's there in the hills. And finally, there is the 5th one in Baelor behind my head. You got to go past the underworld portal, and it's just there, Tower of Prometheus. How to find more Olympia tower keys. As we know, there is the new tier 9 Tower Guardian monster. This is the only monster in the game that can currently drop tower keys. But there's essentially 3 different ways to acquire keys. So obviously killing the Tower Guardian is one. Second one is ascending floors inside towers. You get a random item reward. When you actually ascend floors, you can get a tower key from that. And thirdly, you can of course buy them in the rune shop for a few cents as well. Let's discuss more about Tower Guardians and kind of good strategies to find this mob, because finding the mob is probably the most difficult part. They do exist in towers themselves, so keep your eye out for the Floor Guardian, or as a stray monster, you'll see the Tower Guard mob, and you'll hopefully get a key from that fight. But in the world, in both Orna and Aethric, Tower Guardians are a world monster only. They do not spawn in dungeons. You cannot find them in dungeons. You have to find them in the world. So for world farming, I guess there's two ways, and the second way is going to be the best strategy at the moment. So the first way is pure world farming, killing monsters to replace the spawn. So you want to basically have your max monster spawning gear on. So that's Occult Candle, Torch, Lover's Lost, Accessory, Beast's Blood, and the Amity that increases monster spawns. That's what you want. And they are tier 9 mobs, so obviously use an Affinity Candle, so it filters out all the low tier mobs. And you can either stay in the same place, or you can travel around and hopefully find spawns that way. In Hero of Aethric, you want to go to the Baelor or tier 9 Baelor zone, or the Olympia Trails or Fallen God's Rest tier 10 zone. And again, make sure you use an Affinity Candle to filter out low tier mobs. You may also want to use a Chaos Scroll. The reason being, if you find a Berserk Fallen Guardian, it can drop 2 keys rather than 1, and you're almost guaranteed to at least get 1, because if you don't wear a lot of luck gear, the Olympia Tower key is not actually a guaranteed drop, so be aware of that. Basically, that's the first way for world spawning. Now the second way, this is like the hot tip of the moment, the second way is to actually do world party fights with tier 9 bosses. You start a boss fight, and then you join that fight with your second or third or fourth character, friend, whatever, and that will force monsters to join the boss enemy fight, and it kind of adjusts the rarity of the mob, if you like. It kind of like bypasses that cryptid rarity, or at least makes it more common to spawn. What we're going to do instead is actually spawn a whole bunch of bosses with monster remains. and then we're going to kill out all the bosses that are not a tier 9. So I'm going to probably spawn like, yeah, maybe 100, 150 monster remains, which will take some time. Because obviously when you kill a boss in Orna, it takes at least 3 hours to respawn, or it just won't respawn at all. That's wild bosses. However, you really only want to get like maybe 10, 15 keys to get up and running, because you will regularly find Olympia tower keys when you're doing towers, at least if you are getting to a decent floor height. So I'm gonna spawn all these monsters, filter out all the non-tier 9 bosses. Okay, so if you've not done any world party play before, basically I've got 2 different accounts. This second account has to be at least tier 8 so they can see the tier 9 bosses. And you just start the fight with one, don't touch anything, and then on the second account or your friend, you can actually just click on the same boss and there will be an option to join battle. He'll pop in and boom, we got the Guardian on the first boss fight. And make sure you kill the Guardian straight away. Don't kill the boss without killing the Tower Guardian. So Tower Guardian goes down and boom, there you go, Olympia Tower Key straight away. So that was one boss. That is currently the best way to farm Olympia Tower Keys in the world. So that's for Orna. Basically in Aethric, it's a similar story. You'll probably better off doing it with friends, or jump in the Discord to find people to do this with. Go around the Baylor zone. You can either use monster remains, that will at least get you a few in the same location, or you can just walk around killing the bosses, honestly, because they infinitely spawn there. So that's currently the best way to get Olympia Tower Keys. Alright, let's talk about the actual gameplay and ascending towers themselves. So as we said, it's solo content. You have to do this with your own characters, strengths, wits, weaknesses, whatever. You can't rely on level 250, 50 ascension friend. And the main goal is to basically climb higher floors, defeating floor guardians, stray monsters who drop tower shards, and that's the currency that we'll use in the Titan workshop for the post-game content if you like. Now, costs 1 tower key to enter a tower. You can see your keys on the top left. You can hot link to the rune shop to buy 1 more key, and it will tell you what the current final, or the current count of flowers in the tower, which we'll talk about more. But when you enter the tower, it is tap to move, and it's the same in Orna and Hero of Aethric from this point onwards. Once you're actually in the tower, it's the same. So if you are an Orna player and you've never played Hero of Aethric, you just tap on the location and you're in the tower, if you haven't found already, and your character will go to that point. You can actually, this is hilarious, you can chat to the Lost Olympian NPC and will tell you how many people have died on this floor in the exact tower type, which is pretty hilarious. 291 people haven't made it past floor 1 of Tower of Selene. So it's also a 23-hour cooldown for each tower that you enter. It works like dungeons. So in Orna, if you find, for example, 2 towers of Selene next to each other, they don't share a cooldown. It's just individual cooldowns for each tower that you enter. And basically each floor has kind of like a random little layout. You can find stray monsters around. It will say stray monsters, and there'll be 1 main monster, and it may have horde monsters supporting it. So it will tell you if there are supporting monsters there. And you can also, really cool, you can actually see other players going up the tower alongside you. So any current players who have like fought in the tower, you can see them, check their gear out, what they're using. One very important thing to note is that currently the tower uses your default or your world loadout. So this is kind of more affected for Orna players. If you are using view distance gear, for example, to see a tower from further away for easier entry, make sure you change your gear once you're in the tower. When you're in the tower, it doesn't matter. You can change view distance gear. You can change gear in between fights as normal as if you're in the world. So as we said, once you're in the tower, it's basically the same for both games. And what you are going to do is, each floor, as I said, is random, and there'll be a variety of monsters and floor guardians. So floor guardians are essentially what you need to defeat to progress to the preceding floor. So we can hopefully defeat this on my Aethric character. It's nice when CG uses the correct skill, and then you can progress to the next floor. Now, when you ascend floor, you get some gold, orange, and experience, but you can also get you will also get one random item. So typically that will normally be random materials, and the higher you go, the greater quantity of material you will get. Quite similar to memory hunts, if you like. But there are also some cool items you can get in this slot. That can be summoning scrolls, diluting mnemonics, and even Olympia tower keys. So you can get all of those as well. So the more floors you go, it is more fun. So there's always an incentive to go to more towers. So yeah, you have to kill at least one floor guardian to ascend to the next floor. Now, what you can find inside are random tower chests. They're normally in like a little side room. It has to be a room with a red carpet in it. But when you click on the chest, they can give you one of two things. They can give you stat boosts, which will be applicable in all of your succeeding fights in the tower until you leave. So here in this chest, we found Temp Holy Immune. So we will start the battle, each battle in this tower, with this stats effect, which is pretty cool. And you can get single stat ups, which are permanent. So you can get like single up attack, defense, resistance, magic, dexterity, and foresight as well. And then you can also get, the best ones honestly are temp double ups. Literally you get double up attack, defense, resistance, which is really important to start the fight. It gives you time to use ward, etc. And of course the elemental immunities are really helpful as well. We actually got a second tower chest in this floor, so we'll go and grab that. There's actually not many stray monsters in this tower at the moment. So there you go, boom, we got temp magic up. So that's actually amazing for Crimson Gazer. And a floor guardian this time is a Balder. So the Balder fight is a horde fight. So you can see has some supporting casts there. On this particular floor, we have no option but to defeat this floor guardian to proceed. On the first floor, there was actually 2 guardians, if you remember. So you can actually only defeat one and continue up, or you can min-max and kill all the floor guardians on the floor to get more shards. I actually quit the fight a bit early last time. I didn't mean to do that because I wanted to show the shards that you get. Now this is, as I said, if you saw my first video on my first Hero of Aethric run, you'll know that my character is not really very strong at the moment, and I don't have my best ward gear on, so unfortunately we're not gonna pass this fight. I'll swap to my Orna character for the rest of the video. But what happens when you die, we can tell you now. Basically, half of the shards that you had until this point are completely lost. So you exit this tower with half of your shards, which in this case, I got 3 shards, so I lost 2 of them somehow. And that's it. And you can see there is a 23-hour cooldown on entering the tower again. But I can go to the other towers in Hero of Aethric and go in all of them. And one thing I want you to note right now is that, remember, this screen is a Orna, and you see, if you notice something here, both Tower of Selene in Hero of Aethric and Orna currently have the exact same number of tower floors. They both got 48 floors. This is something we're going to come onto in the later on in this video, but just remember that point. Another really great point, I've just entered the tower in Orna. Remember, it's the same Tower of Selene, and on floor 1 it's the exact same layout with the same floor guardian. So remember, we killed the fallen Vulcan in Aethric, and there is the King Gradlin over on the left side as well. So the layouts are actually the same for both games, for each tower. The stray monsters are different, I think, but the guardians and the floor layout is the same. So that the chests should also be the same as well. So we can actually check the chest right now. We'll just kill this fallen Vulcan, and then there should be 2 chests on the next floor. We've got Avalon ore this time round, so the rewards are, yeah, random for everybody. But there you go, there's 1 chest, and in that second room up there, there is the second chest. So definitely want to pick up all the chests that you can, especially at the beginning of the tower. Apart from the stat boost, as I said, there was 2 things. The other thing you can get are puzzle keys. So you start each tower with 1 puzzle key available, and we'll come on to puzzles later on, but essentially it allows you to skip a puzzle. You start each fight in the tower at full HP and mana. That is to prevent kind of blue line and red line cheese tactics, where you could start with like over 50% of your battle passive already active, which is, yeah, a little bit cheesy. So you will start every single fight with full HP and mana. And then each floor that you progress upwards, the fights become harder, the enemies become stronger. This is something you need to bear in mind, because they'll more than likely reach a point where your character is not strong enough to take down certain fights. There will be more fights that are dangerous, so some are dangerous than others. So you will need to decide which fights to proceed with, which fights to avoid, and if there are like no choice for you to take on an easier fight, you may have to exit the tower. So at the start of each floor, there is the stairs with the exit button. If you just tap the exit button, that will allow you to leave the tower with all of your tower shards intact. 28 tower shards. And go to the next floor, some more materials. And that exit button there, if you tap on that, it will allow you to leave the tower. So a little cool thing actually on the bottom right of the UI, this is the little tower button. It actually tells you the current amount of tower shards that you've gained, your current puzzle keys, and all of the stat boosts that you have acquired from chests until now. It shows you there. It's also got a little timer in the middle to tell you how long you've been in the dungeon, which is, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. If you really want to know, like, do you really want to know how much time you spent in the tower? It could be like hours and hours in doing one piece of content, but yeah, it is what it is. It is there if you want to check it out. So as we said, hopefully this floor has more guardians in it, but you can essentially choose which guardians you want to do, and the scaling for rewards is now linear. It used to be exponential. So the first few floors used to be really useless in terms of rewards. They'd give you very little rewards until like floor 20. And you can choose whether you want to kill all the guardians on a floor for like ultimate min-maxing, or you can choose whether you want to just quickly progress through a certain floor up to a decent floor count, like maybe, I don't know, floor 15, floor 20, where the rewards really start becoming worth it for killing guardians. It kind of depends on your situation, like how much time do you have to play tower content. We've got 30 tower shards from that guardian, and we'll skip up. So yeah, we've got a sealed door there, which is a very good point to showcase. Picking up another chest along the way. That stack, or is that yeah, stray monster? So let's kill a stray monster because we haven't done it yet. Stray monsters give approximately 20% of the rewards of floor guardians, so like 1/5. And certainly in the first few floors, they're definitely not really worth it, but later on they can give you a decent amount of shards. So 12 shards. The 20%, that's kind of anecdotal from my observations. It kind of, in the first few floors, it might not seem like 20%, but as you get, you know, sort of floor 10 onwards, it does feel more like 20% of the guardian floors. So when you come to a sealed door, you will have to do a puzzle. There's currently, I think, like 3 puzzles in the game. Hopefully they add more because are boring. If you don't know what to do, just tap randomly and you will hopefully pass the floor successfully. I will certainly be doing a video on how to complete like every puzzle, and that's pretty much tower gameplay. Go up the floors, kill more guardians, kill more stray monsters, get more tower shards as reward, and halfway up you'll come across a raid boss, which is quite funny. It can be Fomor or Sister Nima and Havoc. That's what I've seen recently. And then on the final floor you will find the Titan. Drop the augments that we use to put in celestial weapons. I will be doing a separate video discussing all of the augments and all the weapons available, but in this video we're just covering the basics of towers. So on the final floor, Again, this is like a 48 floor tower that I'm going through, so it will take like 2 hours to get to the final floor. I'm not going to do all of that, but on the final floor you will have the Selene boss or whatever the named tower that you have. And now let's talk about wild tower growth rates, because they do all grow over time. And as you remember, the towers are the same in Orna and Hero of Aethric. They're all at the same level, so each tower of the same type will be currently at the same floor count, and that's global for Orna. So all towers of Selene will currently be at 448, no matter where they are in the world. So as we said before, the Orna tower was 48 floors, Tower of Selene are 48 floors. But how do these floors actually change? What is the mechanics behind that? So basically what we found out is all towers will grow and they'll gain 1 floor either every 4 hours or every 5 hours. In one 24-hour period, basically in one day, it will grow a total of 5 floors. And currently the timings are based on UTC times. The floors will go up by 1 at 1 a.m., 5 a.m., 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. That is currently what we have discovered. The maximum floor count is 50. When the tower that reaches 50 grows at the next hour, it will go down to floor 15. So 15 is the minimum floor count, and 50 is the maximum. Okay, so in the Orna Legends Discord, please visit. If you're going to do this yourself, please go to the Bot Commands channel. Codex Bot Commands, you're going to type, and Gillis is going to tell us what the current floor count for each type of tower is, and it's going to tell you when it's next going to grow. Let's go check that. So obviously we can check the Tower of Selene in Hero of Aethric right now as 48 towers. Let's go check a couple of the other ones. Tower of Thimes has 33 floors, just as Gillis expected. Now we're going to check out the Titan Workshop, which is where we're going to spend all of our hard-earned tower shards. And basically, in Orna, you're going to have to build the Titan Workshop yourself, and it costs 2 million orns plus 1 billion gold. And all tower workshop content that you're going to build your towers, it's all Origin Town orientated. So you're going to build in your Origin Town. If you move in Orna, it's going to stay with you. However, in Aethric, the Titan Workshop is a tier 10 zone, which is all the way over here, Asphodel Meadows. So to reach that, you go to Olympia Trails and go to Fallen God's Rest, and there's like a bell tower in Fallen God's Rest, which will teleport you across to the Asphodel Trails, and then you just walk up. And there is a waygate there at the Titan Workshop, so make sure you grab that, because then you're going to just waygate over there, use the workshop. For tier 9 players in Aethric, you will have a Prometheus's workbench in Baelor Town. So you can access like the similar things in Titan Workshop. The only thing you cannot do with the workshop in Baelor is you cannot build your own towers yet in Aethric. You have to be tier 10 to build your towers, because in the tier 10 zone, it kind of acts like a mini Origin Town where you enter here and you have to build like in this little area here. So when you go in there and build, it kind of acts like a mini Origin Town. So we're going to talk about all of this stuff. So let's start then in the Titan Workshop. Once you built it in Orna and in Aethric, you have access to it straight away. There's a few different options that you have. We're going to go through them. The Grand Crucible. This is basically where you trade some of your tower shards for certain items. The most important ones being the Tower Core. This is the foundation you need to build your own Tower of Olympia. It costs 15,000 tower shards. Both games, and you're going to need one of these to build one of your towers. So you're going to need to buy 5 of these in total to build all of the towers. You can essentially build one of each type of tower. And then to upgrade your towers, you're going to need to buy a tower plane. And you will need 1 tower plane for every single floor that you upgrade for every single tower. So there's going to be plenty of planes you will need to buy. And then scrolling down, we can then buy weapon molds, which you need to assemble celestial weapons. The molds are at least a one-off purchase. Once you buy the mold for the weapon of your choice, you can then assemble as many celestial weapons of that type as you wish. The tier 10 weapons are, of course, a little bit more expensive, tower shards. Then we have the Star Smelter, where you can basically smelt tower shards down into sky shards at a ratio of 10:1. The only reason I can think these sky shards are actually in the game is to make things look less expensive. Like, instead of having a 200,000 celestial class for tower shards, you have a 20,000 sky shard cost. We then have Celine's Workgrounds, and this is the interface where we construct and upgrade our own towers of Olympia. We can build one of each type, and then you can upgrade them up to floor 50 once you purchase all your tower planes, etc. So yeah, just be aware of the increasing Orn cost per floor. I think in total, to max out a floor 50 tower yourself is going to cost you 820 million Orns. Next, we've got the Prometheus's Kiln, and this is where we assemble your celestial weapons after buying a mold. So when you buy a mold, remember it's one and done. You can then create an infinite amount of weapons off that mold. And basically for tier 9 weapons, they cost, I think, 1,200 sky shards. So 12,000 tower shards. And tier 10 weapons, they cost 5,000 sky shards, which is 50,000 tower shards. So that's just to create the weapon, if you like. And one thing to note here, celestial weapons cannot be held in your offhand. So that means that you cannot dual wield 2 celestial weapons. You can dual wield a celestial weapon with any other type of weapon, just not 2 celestial weapons at once. And celestial weapons, again, we're going to do a more focused video on that. But basically, what makes them special is that when you're using the Titan augments, they have special passive abilities and pretty high stats, things like that. Then we've got the Great Anvil, and this is where you upgrade your celestial weapons. You can upgrade your celestial weapon all the way to level 20. And currently, you start off with 1 augment slot, and then you gain an extra slot every 5 levels, giving you a total of 5 augment slots at max level 20. However, I did see a comment from the dev team recently. They are considering adding an extra slot, so depending on when you're watching this, there may be an increased amount of augmentation slots available. And of course, when you are upgrading your celestial weapons, there is an increasing amount of cost, but basically to fully construct and upgrade a celestial weapon, it's going to cost you around 137,000 tower shards. That's including assembling it and then crafting it. So it's a lot of shards for one weapon, really. We then have Mammoth Vices, and it's going to be in here where you attach augments to your celestial weapons. So when you've built your weapon, it's got slots, and you have augments that you've gained from killing titans. Here is where you're going to augment them. Basically works the same way as adorning, but you cannot adorn, you cannot put regular adornments in celestial weapons. They only work with augments. And similarly, you cannot use augments on regular weapons. They can only be used in celestial weapons. We've then got the Tuomas's Altar, finally, and this is where we unlock the celestial classes. So there are tier 9 classes available, which I find a little bit strange because unless you're spending loads and loads of time at tier 9, you're probably going to want to save all of your currency for tier 10 classes. However, it is there available. It is technically tier 9 content. You will need the base class available to unlock the celestial class. And the other thing to note here is that there is an increasing cost as well with celestial classes. So if you buy one, the second one is going to cost more. I think it goes up maybe 20% or so. I think they're separate, tier 9 and tier 10. So if you did for some reason want to buy multiple tier 9 classes, which, let's be honest, you actually might want to in the future for the skills. I forgot about those. Some of the skills are pretty useful in the future. But yeah, that's probably late tier 10 when you've got thousands and thousands of shards. So, initial questions about celestial classes. They share ascension levels with the base class. So for example, if you have a Gilgamesh with 10 Ascension levels on it, and you unlock Gilgamesh Hercules as a Celestial class, when you're using Gilgamesh Hercules, you will still have 10 Ascension levels on the class. So they essentially are based off the base class. Sorry, they use the base class and they use the same Ascension levels. So same idea, if you got like 50 Ascension levels in Heretic, when you unlock and use Heretic Aura, you'll have 50 Essential levels when you're using Aura, same way. And as I said, we'll do a separate video going into detail on all the Celestial classes, what my current opinion of them is, but the final note kind of from the dev team is these are kind of meant as side grades rather than direct upgrades. So they might be better at certain types of game content, might be worse than the base class, that type of thing. They're supposed to lean into specific play styles rather than being direct upgrades to the base class and give you just like immediate power boost for the entire game, like all game content. As I said, keep an eye out for my Celestial class overview video. But that is essentially the basics of Tower Olympia for both Orna and Hero of Aethric. Let me know what you think of the new tower content. My only gripe with it so far is that it just takes so long to go through towers. If you don't have the time to spend, it is a big sink in terms of time and investment. So it is a long-term grind. Of course, they do want it as long-form end-game content to last months and months. That I don't have a problem with. It's just taking time, having 2 hours to sit down and go through a large tower, which is my only gripe with it at the moment. Otherwise, I'm excited that the build diversity that this will offer bring to the game. Really interested to see new builds that people come up with, etc., etc. If you like the video, you know what to do. Hit the like button and subscribe as well. Hope this was really useful. If you do have any questions, as always, stick a comment in. I do my best to get to those as fast as possible. Join the Orna Legends Discord. Loads of knowledgeable people in there. Questions are usually answered really rapidly. And as always, big thank you to my Arisen Orna Legends for supporting me on Patreon and Twitch. Help is greatly appreciated. And without your support, I wouldn't be doing all these videos for Orna or Aethric as well. So if you want to get involved, there is a link in the description as well. Otherwise, I'm Shabash. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next Towers of Olympia video. Ciao.